You're standing in a grocery store on a Tuesday afternoon. Normal Tuesday, normal store. But your card just got declined. Not because you're broke, because the system is down. You look around. Other people are staring at their phones. The guy behind the register shrugs. Outside, there's a line at the ATM that wraps around the building. You check your bank app. It won't load. You try again. Nothing. And somewhere, deep in your gut, past the confusion, past the annoyance, a very old, very quiet part of your brain starts whispering one word: run, now. Most people think an economic collapse looks like Wall Street guys jumping out of windows and the stock ticker flashing red on CNN. That's the movie version. The real version? It's quieter, slower, and by the time it makes the evening news, the collapse has already been eating through the foundations for months, sometimes years. The building was falling long before the roof caved in. And that's what makes this so dangerous. Not the collapse itself, the fact that most people don't recognize the warning signs until they're standing in the rubble wondering what happened. The signs are there. They're always there. You just have to know where to look. And that's exactly what we're doing today. 10 signals that an economy is bleeding out. Signals that economists, historians, and the people who've actually lived through collapses have identified. Some of these you've never heard of. A couple of them are happening right now. And the last one on this list, honestly, it's the one that unsettles me the most because it's the one hiding in plain sight. Let's get into it. Number 1, the silent velocity drop. Here's something they never taught you in school. Money has speed. Economists call it velocity of money, which is just a fancy way of saying how fast a dollar changes hands. You buy coffee, the shop pays rent, the landlord buys groceries, the grocery store pays employees. That dollar is moving. When velocity is high, the economy is alive. When it drops, money is sitting still. People are hoarding. Businesses are hoarding. Banks are hoarding. Nobody trusts the next transaction. M2 velocity in the U.S. went from 2.2 in 2006 to 1.12 by 2020, the lowest ever recorded. A dollar that used to move twice was barely moving once, and almost nobody noticed, because GDP can still look fine on paper while the blood is pooling internally. Number 2, the overnight panic. This one's spicy. There's a market most people have never heard of called the repo market, short for repurchase agreements. It's basically where massive banks lend each other money overnight, every single night. Trillions of dollars sloshing back and forth while you sleep. It's the plumbing of the entire financial system. And in September 2019, months before COVID became a headline, the overnight repo rate spiked from around 2% to 10% in a single day. That's not a fluctuation. That's banks refusing to lend to each other. When banks don't trust banks, you should be paying very close attention. The Fed had to inject over $75 billion into the system to keep things from locking up, and nobody on the nightly news said a word. Number 3, the gold rush you weren't invited to. Central banks around the world started buying gold like their countries depended on it, because they probably do. In 2022 alone, central banks purchased 1,136 tons of gold, the most in any single year since 1967. China, India, Turkey, Poland, they weren't buying gold because it's shiny. They were buying gold because they were quietly exiting their positions in other currencies. When the institutions that print money start hoarding metal instead of trusting their own paper, that's not a hedge. That's a confession. Number 4, the incredible shrinking everything. You've noticed this one. Your cereal box is the same height but lighter. Your bag of chips has more air than a balloon. Your toilet paper roll is narrower. This is shrinkflation, and it's not just annoying, it's a thermometer. When companies can't raise prices without losing customers, they shrink the product instead. Average reductions across consumer goods have hit 10 to 15% in the last few years alone. The price stays the same. The product disappears. Slowly. Quietly. It's inflation wearing a disguise. And it tells you something important. Companies know consumers are already stretched to the breaking point. They just can't say it out loud. Quick pause. If you're watching this and you've already started putting pieces together in your head, good. That's the whole point. Hit subscribe, because the next time one of these signals flashes red, you might want someone in your feed who speaks this language instead of the usual noise. Think of it as a prep you can do right now without leaving your couch. Number 5. The upside-down bond. The yield curve. Sounds boring. It's not. A yield curve is basically the interest rate the government pays you for lending it your money. Short-term lending should pay less than long-term lending. That's normal. That makes sense. When it inverts, meaning you get paid more for short-term lending than long-term, it means investors believe the near future is more dangerous than the distant future. An inverted yield curve has preceded every single U.S. recession since 1955. Every one. And in 2022 through 2023, the curve inverted for the longest continuous stretch in recorded history. That's not a yellow light. That's the universe flashing its high beams at you. Number 6. Capital runs for the exit. This is one of the most reliable predictors and one of the least talked about. Before Argentina's economy collapsed in 2001, approximately $20 billion in capital fled the country in a matter of months. Money doesn't have feelings, but it does have instincts. When wealthy individuals, corporations, and foreign investors start quietly moving assets offshore, converting local currency to dollars or euros or gold, that's not portfolio management. That's an evacuation. Watch where the money goes. It always knows before you do. And here's the part that keeps me up at night. Most of these signs don't happen one at a time. They stack, they overlap, they feed each other, and each one alone can look like a blip, a statistical hiccup, a quirk in the data. Together, they're a diagnosis. Number 7. The credit freeze nobody announces. Banks don't put up signs that say, "We're scared." Instead, they quietly tighten lending standards, fewer mortgages approved, business loan applications rejected more frequently, credit lines reduced without explanation. The Federal Reserve actually tracks this through something called the Senior Loan Officer Opinion Survey. And every single time that survey shows significant tightening, a recession has followed. I've seen people get denied for loans they would have gotten 6 months prior, and they blame their credit score. It's not your score. It's the system pulling up the drawbridge. Number 8. The barter signal. When an economy is truly failing, people stop trusting the currency. Not philosophically, practically. They start trading goods for goods, services for services. In Venezuela, during their hyperinflation spiral, local Bitcoin's trading volume surged over 2,000%. People were swapping crypto for food. Cigarettes became currency. Cooking oil became currency. When you see a rise in alternative exchange systems, barter networks, crypto spikes in specific regions, local community currencies, that's not innovation. That's survival, adapting around a dying system. Number 9. The insurance canary. This one flies under the radar. Insurance companies are some of the best risk calculators on the planet. It's literally their job. When they start pulling out of regions, refusing to write new policies, or hiking premiums beyond what's reasonable, they're telling you something. They ran the numbers, and the numbers said, leave. We've seen it in real estate markets. We've seen it in flood zones. We've seen it in entire states. When the people whose entire business model is predicting disaster decide a place isn't worth betting on, that's not a business decision. That's a prophecy. And now, number 10, the one I told you about at the beginning, the lipstick index. This was coined by Leonard Lauder, chairman of Estee Lauder, during the 2001 recession. He noticed that when the economy starts tanking, lipstick sales go up. Small luxuries go up. People stop buying big things, cars, houses, vacations, but they start buying tiny treats, a $4 coffee, a new shade of nail polish, a candle. It sounds silly. It's not. It's the psychology of a population that knows, on some cellular level, that things are getting worse, and they're reaching for the smallest possible comfort. When you see small luxury spending spike while big purchases collapse, you're watching a society self-soothing before the fall. Here's what ties all of this together, and it's worth understanding the logic beneath the noise. An economy is not a machine. It's a living organism. It has circulation, the velocity of money. It has a nervous system, the bond markets. It has immune responses, lending standards. And like any living thing, it doesn't die suddenly, it shows symptoms. A civilization doesn't collapse when the lights go out. It collapses when enough of these signals fire at the same time and nobody was watching. Every economy that has collapsed, Argentina, Weimar Germany, Zimbabwe, Venezuela, showed a majority of these signs before the crash. The data was there, the warnings were there. People just didn't know what they were looking at, or worse, they were told not to look. So let me ask you something, and I'm genuinely curious. Drop it in the comments. How many of these signs are you seeing right now in your country, in your community? Because I've been tracking this for a while, and the overlap isn't abstract anymore. Some of you are living inside the early chapters of this story right now. The people who survive economic collapse aren't the richest. They're the ones who read the room before the room caught fire. Preparation isn't paranoia. Paranoia is what people call preparation when they're too comfortable to imagine the alternative. You just learned 10 things most people won't see until it's too late. That makes you different. That makes you dangerous in the best possible way. Someone who sees the warning signs while everyone else is sleepwalking into the disaster. Now, the question is what you do with it. Subscribe if you want to keep sharpening that edge, because when the next signal fires, and it will, I'd rather you see it coming than get buried by it.